All right, so in this video, I'm going to show you just how to get into Stata and just the very basics of the layout of Stata. So to start off, you need to, this is on a Windows machine. It's going to look slightly different if you use a Mac. So I'm going to go to my Start menu, and then I just click on Stata SE right here because I've put it into this tile. If you need to find it in your just list of programs, you'll just need to scroll down to Stata and open it that way. If you have a Mac, then what you're going to need to do is go into your launcher and then navigate to wherever Stata happens to be. And so this is what Stata looks like once you have it loaded. It's going to look essentially the same, both in PC and in Mac, though there will be some slight differences when it comes to accessing files and whatnot. But overall, it's going to look essentially just like this. So this is the basic Stata window. And there are five elements or components, or Stata calls them subwindows, whatever. Collectively, this is called the Stata console. So the parts are right here where my cursor is. This is called the command window. Since a lot of the work that one does in Stata involves programming, this is where you can type in commands and things like that to manipulate your data, create data, whatever it is you need to do. So that all gets entered down here in the command window. Up here, this is called the results window or the output window sometimes. And what happens when you type a command in down here, that's going to trigger some sort of action that you'll see in the output window up here. And then over on the left-hand side, so this is the history window. So over here, what you'll see is a log of all the commands that you have entered into Stata that you've told Stata to execute. That's all going to, history of all of that's going to be stored over here on the left. Over here, there is a window right here. This is called the variables window. When you have data loaded, it's going to show the name of all the variables here and then the labels or the descriptions of those variables that might be attached to them. That's all going to be shown right here. Then down here, there is properties. And so the properties window, you'll see there are two panels here, variables and data. So data, what you'll see here is it'll tell you that, what is the name of the file that you have open that you're working in. It'll tell you things like any notes that might be attached. Variables, how many variables are in this data set? How many observations do you have in the data set? How much, how large is the file that you're working with? All of that's going to be down here in the data. So if you want to see, well, how many variables do I have and how many observations do I have? And if you're used to the language of spreadsheets, variables, those are going to be your columns. Observations, those are going to be your rows. And if you want to know how many of those you have, you'll look down here in the data window. Up here in the variables panel of the properties window, what you'll see is, name, label, type. So this is just information about a particular variable. So when you have data loaded, you can click on a variable in the variables window, and the variables panel of the properties window is going to tell you information about that variable. So that's the basic layout. If something ever happens, sometimes you're clicking around and you accidentally say click and you close the properties window and you want to get it back. It's very easy to get back. You can just go up to the window tab and click properties, and there you go, it reappears. So that's what to do in that case. If you want, you can resize these windows depending on what you're doing. If you want to make something bigger or smaller or anything like that, you have the ability to just easily do any of that. If you want to change the appearance of anything, you can just right click right here in the output and go to, say, font if you want to just change the font. So here you can change the actual font, you can change the font style, the size. So if you want to make things bigger and easier to see, or smaller so that more can fit on there, whatever it is that you want to do, that's how you would do that. There are also different color schemes that you can get to. Just if you want to change the appearance, so light and light gray and blue, they're all going to look actually pretty similar, but depending on just your preference, you might like it to be in the dark color scheme where the colors are more or less inverted. So that's how you can do any of that. I'm just going to go back to the default. Okay, so that is that's the basics of Stata. Like I said, most of what you're going to be doing interacting with Stata is going to be down here in the things are going to come through the command window as things get entered in. And just so you know, what I'll show you in later videos, it's all going to be about how to work with the commands, the coding, but it's also possible to use the menus to navigate to a lot of the stuff that you can do. It just takes a little bit longer. If you know the code, it's much faster to use that than it is to navigate through all of the different kinds of menus and submenus and whatever that there are. So that's the basics of getting into Stata.